Okay, so today's job is to change this Rio Grande F3A or an F2A, whatever it is. I think this is an F3A. Anyway, to make it DCC capable. And what I've already done is I've stripped it all down. You can see here's the bare frame. And there's an earlier video on that. I have a small box here that I keep all the parts in, so I have all of those just sitting here ready to go. I'll show you those shortly. So here's the body, there's the frame that's been milled, and a couple of things on this frame so you're aware. And what I've done here is you can see there's a couple little channels that I just took a hacksaw, put those in. This rear area here is where, when I sent it away to be milled, where they milled that out so that a 16 millimeter speaker like this one will fit in, and that's larger than what comes on the decoder, which is only a 13 mil speaker. So the advantage of the 13 mil is it's a little bit thinner, but I like the sound out of the 16, so I'm going to use that. Incidentally, this is a Digitrax SDN144K0A decoder, and we'll graft this speaker onto the speaker there and save that. Rear LED we won't be using, front LED, and it needs to be shortened because the actual board that it comes with looks like this, so you can see between the two that I need to do some shortening. This is the capacitor, and I've also taken a Dremel to the frame and right in here just made a little indentation on each side so that the capacitor will fit in there like that. Without that, it comes out a little too far, and then it touches on the end here and won't work properly. The other thing I'm going to do is I have here I think this is a pico, or maybe it's a nano sized LED. The very end there is an LED, and I'm going to wire this in and just have it shining up, and the effect that'll do is in reverse it'll mean this rear porthole light is on, and I'll see maybe I can position it to get both portholes lit up. On some of my units I put the light right there, but because of the width of this speaker, it already causes this to bulge out a bit, and so I can't put it in there. So I thought for effects purposes I can have it in there. I can do things like leave it off or have it on only when the loco is stopped, and it's directional. So anyway, lots of things I can do with that. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and show you all the rest of the components. So trucks are off. Looks like it's bent a little bit funny, so I will just rebend that. Anyway, trucks. Fuel tank. This is the front holder that goes in the very front so that you can put the front coupler in. Motor. And a good pair of tweezers here to get the rest of this out. One dog bone, another dog bone. Clips hold the trucks on. Molded engineering detail. Pickup strips. And this here is the front coupler, and that's all that's in the box. So some of this we'll put away because we certainly don't need it now. Those we'll need shortly. Press this, we'll need shortly. Okay, now you've seen most of the parts. Let's start our assembly. First thing I do is I do a little bit of lubrication, seeing as everything's apart. This is an easy time to do it. And so I have some very lightweight Woodland Scenic ultralight oil. Going to put it in 4 spots. So I'm going to put it just in the motor area, right at the bearing area where the flywheel goes into the motor. Drop in there. And a drop in there. Spin that around a few times. The other thing I'm going to do is this little black bearing there that just pulls off. Put a drop on the end. Bearing back on. Spin it around a bit. Do the same with the other. Drop on the end. There you go. Spin it around. Put the cap back on. And put that away now that we're done that. Next thing is to put the engine in and the motor in. In order to do that, the way I like to do it is to have both of the drives inserted first. If I'm trying to do them afterwards, a real pain, so it's easier this way. There is only one way that this motor will go in, but I happen to know the contacts are forward, so that's reversed. So this just drops in easily. When you do that, make sure that the little bearings, which are square, line up with the little retainers. Press down a little more. There. Pretty simple job. That's all in. No problem there. Now put these 2 clips on. They do serve a couple of purposes. They hold this down and they help hold the contact strips in place. These 2 are identical, so you don't have to worry about getting them in wrong or anything. Well, getting them the wrong side. There's it's pretty straightforward. There's a little tab here. You can see how that fits right in there. So we just go ahead and slide that on like that. Take this one and it just slides on like that. Now we have those in place, so you can see what those look like. Nothing too exciting there. And the next thing I'm going to do is get the board ready. Remember, I have a light to take off and a light that's too long, so I'm going to have to desolder and resolder and do that. So we'll put this aside now. And everything put aside, I'm going to get my 3rd hand in here. And this is the rear light. The rear light's going to come off completely. So with the 3rd hand, and just a couple of folded pieces of cardboard so I don't do any damage to the PCB board with these jaws. And that sits there like that. Okay, rear one is where the speaker is. So we'll leave the speaker wires on, we'll cut them later. And bring in the soldering iron. I have a Weller WES51, so it's variable. I've got it set appropriate for electronics. Tip of the soldering iron is nice and shiny. So that should make it pretty easy to pull this guy off. What I learned before is don't pull up. There, that's all there is to that. Okay, so that's that guy taken off. Throw that in my spare parts bin. And the front one we are now going to work with. So I'm going to reverse this. So that we can work with the front. Now in order to do this, I want to desolder this, shorten it, and then solder it back on. So step one is to mark which is which. So black wire, I'm going to mark this side black. Because yeah, I did switch them the last time I did this and it doesn't work worth shit. So now I have those marked. We'll do the same desoldering job here. Okay, now for the next step, we'll get rid of the third hand for a couple of minutes here. We'll bring in the old board so that I can match these two up. And I happen to know that, here, I'll take this Kapton tape off. It's here for another purpose. It doesn't need to be on. The reason there's Kapton tape on here is so that you can insulate these little guys, but I'll show you that later, and I've already done it. Oh, incidentally, I don't like using the Kapton tape that's supplied because it's not as sticky after it's been stuck on there. I went out and bought a roll. So, when we look at this, and I'm going to bring everything's aligned the way it would be now. You can see right here is a little tab, and on the original, this here, it sits like this, that little piece goes in, and on the replacement, that piece goes in. So for lining up, I just line up based on those two things. Get the motor out of the way again, or the shell. So what I want to do is line up that piece with that piece so that I can then put this in the LED and see how far it should project to be the same. And that looks to be about right. I will get a Sharpie and measure to where my cut point is, right there. Okay, let's make sure everything's lined up again. That's going to go to there. It'll go like that. Okay, that looks good. Little short, little long. Won't hurt. And now we'll grab a pair of flush cut guys. Find our mark. Hold on to everything so nothing flies. And there we go. For some reason I saved the little wire ends, but not sure why. Next step is to tin this LED. So to do that, I simply dip the ends in some flux, just so there's a tiny coating of flux. I go and grab my solder, gigantic roll of solder.